The moment Johnny's hand slid under my blouse, I stopped pretending this was accidental. The hospital room reeked of bourbon and regret, the fluorescent lights humming like a jury. Charlie had been gone barely 3 minutes, just long enough for Johnny to corner me, his breath hot against my ear as he whispered, "Always wanted this, Rita." And God help me, I didn't stop him. Thank you, dear hearts, for joining me in this unflinching tale. To my new viewers, welcome. To my loyal family, you're my compass. If this story grips you, hit subscribe. Your voices fuel this channel, so shout your thoughts in the comments. Let's begin. I am Rita Gallagher, 54, a mother of 2, wife to Charlie for 30 years. We live in a faded blue colonial in Lexington, where the porch swing creaks louder than our conversations. Johnny, Charlie's best friend, the man who taught my sons to curse in Spanish, had been dying for months. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that eats you alive. That day at St. Mary's, Johnny looked like a scarecrow in a hospital gown. About time, he rasped when we arrived, his IV pole clattering as he hugged Charlie. His eyes lingered on me. Too long. We drank. Charlie smuggled in bourbon, the cheap kind Johnny loved. We toasted to old times, fishing trips, bonfires, the night Johnny dragged Charlie home after a bar fight. But the laughter felt thin. Charlie's face grew pale, his hands shaky. "Gonna be sick," he muttered, staggering to the restroom. The door hadn't even clicked shut before Johnny was on me. It wasn't gentle. His mouth crashed against mine, bitter with whiskey and decay. I should have shoved him, screamed. But 30 years of being Charlie's good wife curdled into recklessness. My back hit the cold hospital wall as he yanked my skirt up, his fingers bruising my thighs. "Knew you would cave," he hissed, breath ragged. I didn't speak. Didn't dare. The monitors beeped, a morbid soundtrack as he fumbled with his gown. It was quick. Messy. His hips grinding against mine, my panties torn and discarded near the wastebasket. When it was over, he slumped against me, sweat gluing his shirt to his spine. Then the toilet flushed down the hall. We broke apart like thieves. Johnny wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, grinning like he had won the lottery. I scrambled for my clothes, my fingers trembling as I buttoned my blouse inside out. The taste of him, metallic, sour, clung to my tongue. Charlie shuffled back in, gray-faced. "Migraines killin' me," he mumbled, squinting at me. My lipstick was smeared across Johnny's collar. I lunged for tissue, dabbing my mouth. "Let's go home," I said, too loud. In the car, Charlie frowned. "Your neck's all red." "Allergies," I lied, staring straight ahead. But my thighs still burned. That night, I scrubbed myself raw in the shower. Charlie snored downstairs, oblivious. I wanted to scream, to confess. Instead, I crawled into bed and replayed every second, Johnny's desperation, my complicity, the way I had arched into him. The guilt didn't wait till morning. It slithered into bed with me, whispering, "You're worse than him." You knew, and I had. The guilt hit me like a fist to the throat the moment we pulled into the driveway. Charlie's keys jangled as he fumbled with the lock, his shoulders hunched against the cold, or maybe against me. I stared at the hydrangeas I had planted years ago, their brittle skeletons rattling in the wind. Dead things pretending to be alive, I thought. Inside, the house felt smaller. Charlie didn't speak. He didn't have to. The way he lingered in doorways, his gaze slicing through me as I scrubbed dishes raw, told me enough. That night, I dreamt of Johnny's hands, calloused and yellowed from chemo, curling around my hips. I woke choking on a scream, only to find Charlie's side of the bed empty. He had started sleeping in the den. The lies came easier than I had feared. When Charlie asked why I had gone quiet, I blamed menopause. When he caught me staring at Johnny's number in my phone, I said I was checking meal train dates for the church ladies. But the truth festered. I would catch my reflection in the microwave door and barely recognize the woman there, hollow-eyed, mouth tight as a locked diary. Then the text began. "You there?" Johnny's first message glowed on my screen at 2:17 a.m., 3 days after the hospital. My heart thrashed as I typed. "Can't sleep. Pain's bad." I didn't answer. But when he wrote again a week later, "Found something you should see," I drove to St. Mary's during my lunch break, telling Charlie I had a dentist appointment. Johnny's room reeked of decay now, the bourbon replaced with morphine. He gestured to a shoebox under his bed. "Letters," he rasped. "Wrote them years ago. Was gonna burn them, but figured you ought to know." The box trembled in my hands. "Know what?" His laugh became a cough. "That it wasn't just the damn cancer making me reckless." The first letter was dated June 8th, 1995, 2 months before my wedding. "Rita, you picked him. I get it. Charlie's solid, a good man. But when you walked down the aisle in that dress last week, yeah, I peeked. I swear to Christ I forgot how to breathe. If you ever change your mind, I am here, always." There were others. Dozens. Letters from after my first son was born, saw you rocking him on the porch. Never seen anything so beautiful. After Charlie's layoff in 08, tell me if you need money. I will wire it, no questions. Even one from the day of his diagnosis. Wish I had fought harder for you. I read them in the hospital parking lot, engine running, heat blasting as sobs racked my body. All those years, Johnny had been a shadow in my marriage, a ghost of what if. Charlie noticed. Of course he did. "You're different," he said one night, hovering in the kitchen as I shredded lettuce with violent precision. "Just tired." Tired of me? The knife slipped. Blood bloomed across my fingertip. Charlie reached for me, but I jerked back. "Stop." His face hardened. "You been talking to Johnny?" "He's dying, Charlie." "Yeah." He grabbed his coat. Funny how death makes people do stupid shit. The door slammed. I slid to the floor, clutching Johnny's letters to my chest, their edges sharp as knives. 2 days later, the call came. Johnny was gone. At the funeral, I wore sunglasses and kept my distance from the casket. Charlie stood rigid beside me, jaw clenched through the eulogies. But when they lowered Johnny into the ground, he whispered, "You loved him, didn't you?" The world tilted. Before I could answer, he walked away. That night, I found the shoebox missing from my closet. And then the nausea started. The second pink line appeared before I could steady my hands. Pregnant. The word echoed in the bathroom, sharp and final, as I gripped the edge of the sink. Morning light bled through the blinds, striping the floor like prison bars.
6 weeks, the doctor had said.
6 weeks since the hospital.
Since Johnny.
Charlie found me there, the test clutched in my fist. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. The shoebox of letters sat at his feet, its lid pried open like a wound. "You gonna tell me," he said, voice flat, "or do I gotta read the rest of these?" We had been careful once. After the boys left for college, Charlie joked about retirement benefits, but the truth was, we had drifted into separate orbits. Him in his recliner with a TV blaring NASCAR, me in the garden, digging furiously at weeds. The last time we had touched was months ago, a perfunctory kiss after his cousin's funeral. Dry lips, closed mouths. A goodbye to more than just the dead. Now the math was merciless. He threw the letters first. They fluttered around me, pages whispering against the tile. 1989. I had quit drinking if you asked. 2002. Dreamed about you again. Wrong, I know. Johnny's handwriting, once charmingly sloppy, now looked feverish.
desperate.
How long? Charlie's voice cracked. I could have lied, blamed the bourbon, the grief, the decades of loneliness. But the weight of the test strip in my palm stripped me bare. Once, I said. Just once. His laugh was a hollow thing. Hell of a once. Revenge came swift. That night, Charlie dragged our old suitcase from the attic, dust motes swirling in the lamplight. You will stay till the kid's born, he said, tossing it on the bed. Then you're out. I will tell the boys it's mine. They will never know their mom's a whore. The word hung between us, ugly and alive. I reached for him, but he recoiled. Do not, he hissed. You don't get to touch me ever again. The pregnancy became a war. Charlie installed a lock on his bedroom door. He cooked single portions of spaghetti, ate at the table while I picked at saltines in the living room. When the nausea hit, he would turn up the TV, drowning out my retches with roaring engines. But at night, I heard him, pacing, weeping. Once, the shatter of a photo frame, our wedding portrait, maybe. The one where Johnny stood grinning behind Charlie, his eyes locked on me. The doctor confirmed it at 8 weeks, one heartbeat, fluttering faint as a moth. I asked for a paternity test. Won't change anything, Charlie said in the parking lot, keys jingling. Kid's a Gallagher. I will raise it. You will just be the incubator. Rain sheeted against the windshield as I whispered. And if it's Johnny's? He stared straight ahead. Then you will both disappear. I started carrying the letters in my purse. At stoplights, I would trace Johnny's words. You deserved more than I could give. One afternoon, I drove to his grave. The headstone was still raw, dirt clinging to its edges. You selfish bastard, I muttered, sinking to my knees. You left me holding the grenade. Wind stirred the grass. No answers there. Charlie's retaliation escalated. He canceled my credit cards, changed the Wi-Fi password. When our eldest, Jake, called, Charlie barked, "Your mom's got a bug," before handing me the phone. I pressed it to my ear, listening to Jake's voice, so like his father's. While Charlie watched, arms crossed. That night, I found the suitcase gone. In its place, a crib. Changed my mind, he said. You will stay. Raise the kid. Pretend we're happy. And you? He smiled, thin and venomous. I will be busy. The text pinged as he left the room. I glimpsed the screen over his shoulder. Miss you. Tonight?
Al.
The crib arrived in a box stamped with cartoon elephants. Charlie assembled it in the living room, his hands steady as he hammered the rails, while I sat frozen on the couch. Every thud felt like a verdict. The text from Al burned in my mind, but I said nothing. Silence had become our language. I found the receipts in his toolbox, a diner off Interstate 75, a motel called The Pines, charges dated back to before the hospital.
Before Johnny.
Before everything. Charlie hadn't just retaliated. He had been waiting. That night, I confronted him in the garage, receipts trembling in my hand. Who is L? He didn't look up from his workbench, where he was polishing his father's old rifle.
Lynn.
From the VA meetings. The name punched through me. Lynn, petite, 30-something Lynn, who had hugged him after his speech at the Veterans Fundraiser, who had brought us casseroles when Johnny died. How long? Long enough. He cocked the rifle. Click. You really want to do this, Rita? The divorce papers came 3 days later. Charlie's lawyer, a shark in a pinstripe suit, demanded full custody, the house, even my grandmother's china. Infidelity clauses, he sneered, sliding photos across the table. Me leaving Johnny's grave, the letters in my purse. But I had brought my own evidence. Exhibit A, my lawyer said, placing motel receipts and screenshots of Charlie's text to Lynn on the judge's desk. Charlie's face turned to stone. We settled in the parking lot. You keep the kid, he spat. I will keep the boys. They're grown men, Charlie. They will pick me. His smile was a knife.
Watch.
The paternity test results arrived in a plain envelope. I opened it in the OB's parking lot, sunlight glaring off the windshield. Probability of paternity, 0%. Johnny's daughter.
Mine.
I laughed until tears blurred the words. Charlie's voice hissed in my memory. You will both disappear. Isolation came in stages. First, the church ladies stopped calling. Then my book club. Finally, my sons. Jake's wedding invitation arrived with a sticky note. Dad's giving me away. Hope you understand. I didn't. But I mailed a gift anyway. Johnny's antique pocket watch, the one he had left me in his will. Let them wonder. Charlie's affair exploded at the worst time. Lynn's husband stormed into the courthouse during our custody hearing, screaming about trespassing and broken vows. The judge postponed the case. Get your shit together, she snapped. Charlie cornered me outside. You did this. No, I said, pressing a hand to my swollen belly. You did. The baby came in April during a thunderstorm. No epidural, no Charlie. Just a nurse named Rosa who held my hand and whispered, Iris Fuerte. When they placed her in my arms, squalling, red-faced, with Johnny's crooked smile, I named her Savannah. After the city where he had once sent a postcard. Wish you were here. We moved into a duplex near the river. At night, I would rock Savannah and replay memories like a penitent. Johnny's laugh, Charlie's hands fixing the porch swing, the boys splashing in the kiddie pool. Regret was a heavy lullaby. Then the letter came. Rita, found this in Dad's desk. Thought you should know. Jake's handwriting. Inside, a photo of Charlie and Lynn at Jake's wedding. And a positive pregnancy test dated 2 weeks before Savannah's birth. Lynn's baby. Charlie's second chance. I tucked it into Savannah's baby book. Someday, I would tell her about the men who had shaped us, the one who left, the one who lied, and the one who taught me how to burn. 10 years later, I planted azaleas by the duplex, violent pink, like the ones in Lexington. Savannah knelt beside me, dirt smudged on her cheeks, her hands steady as she patted soil around the roots. She had Johnny's hands. His stubbornness, too. Mom, she said suddenly, what was my dad like? The trowel slipped. I had rehearsed this moment, but no words came. Above us, storm clouds gathered, the air thick with the promise of rain.
He.
I wiped my palms on my jeans. He loved the open road. Hated socks. Once ate a whole lemon on a dare. She giggled, then sobered. Why don't we visit him? In her bedroom, I handed her the shoebox. She lifted the letters like artifacts, her small fingers tracing Johnny's scrawl. When she reached the photo tucked beneath them, Johnny at Jake's graduation, grinning beside a cake shaped like a base, she whispered, He looks like me. We drove to the cemetery the next day. Savannah wore Johnny's pocket watch around her neck, its chain glinting against her sunflower dress. The grave was weathered now, moss creeping over the dates. Hi, Dad, she said, placing a pebble on the headstone. Jewish tradition, something she had read in a book. I hadn't taught her that. I stood back, throat tight, as she chatted to the dirt. Told him about school, her goldfish, the azaleas. When she asked, was Mom your best friend? The wind snatched my breath. No, baby, I murmured. He was mine. Charlie found us there. He looked older, his beard streaked with gray, a toddler clutching his hand. Lynn's son. Our eyes met. Savannah froze, then stepped between us, like a shield. It's okay, I said, though nothing was. He nodded at Savannah. She's got his mouth. I just smiled back. The toddler tugged Charlie's sleeve.
Daddy, go.
As they walked away, Savannah pressed the pocket watch to her chest. Do I have grandparents? Just me. Good. She laced her fingers with mine. You're enough. That night, I burned the letters. Watched them curl in the fire pit, Johnny's words turning to smoke. Savannah slept inside, the pocket watch under her pillow. Charlie called once, months later. Lynn left.
Took the kid.
I am sorry. A pause. You were right. I didn't fight for you. I hung up. Forgiveness, I had learned, isn't a sprint. It's a slow bleed. Last week, Savannah brought home a boy, sweet, nervous, with grass stains on his knees. They sat on the porch swing, sharing a milkshake. From the kitchen window, I saw her laugh, head thrown back, Johnny's watch catching the light. Later, she asked, Did you ever love anyone after Dad? I thought of Charlie's hands building cribs, Johnny's lips on my neck, the lonely years in between. Love's not always about after, I said. Sometimes it's about despite. She kissed my cheek, sticky with strawberry syrup.
You're weird, Mom.
And you're free, I thought. That's the legacy. To my brave viewers, thank you for walking this raw, twisted road with me. If this story gripped you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Did Rita deserve her ending? Could Charlie have forgiven? Let's ignite the conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. To new viewers, hit that button. Together, we will keep unraveling the messy, beautiful truth of being human.
Until next time.
End of story.